Hi, everybody. It's Tom Shamborn. I'm the VP of Marketing with Instructional Technologies, and it is 10 a.m. We've got a great webinar in store for you today. It's sort of a panel discussion. If I could get my panelists to unmute themselves and make sure that we can hear everybody, that would be great. Brandon, are you on board here?
Yes, I am.
Outstanding. And Laura, are you here?
Yes, I am.
All right, this is great. And I've also got Nate here with me. So we're going to present. We are going to give our stragglers another few seconds to show up here. But, I mean, really, do they need to wait to hear what I have to say? Not really. So I'll just go ahead and kick things off. We are here today. Thank you so much. Once again, my name is Tom Schoenborn. I'm the VP of Marketing for Instructional Technologies. And you are here today to learn about how to build your training program the Ryder way. We are going to talk a lot about how Ryder and Instructional Technologies work together and provide a lot of advice that other fleets, I think, will find useful in your training operations for onboarding and ongoing training. If you are here today because you are a Ryder employee and you think that you are going to be onboarded or trained in something specific for Ryder, that is not the case. So this is not, we're not here to engage in your employee onboarding. My help desk asked me to tell you guys that. A couple of quick housekeeping things. We are recording today's webinar, so if you get called away on an emergency but are really bummed that you're going to miss out on something, we will be sharing the video afterwards. I've also muted everybody but our speakers, so we can't hear you. And we will be fielding questions at the end of today's webinar. You can ask them at any time in the questions tab in the control panel, which is what this little screenshot is here. You'll note this list of things. There's a thing that says questions down near the bottom. If you put your questions in there, that'll be great, and I will be monitoring those, and I will cull through those, and we will leave ourselves some time at the end of the presentation to talk through them. So I wanted to really quickly introduce our panel members. Joining us today, we've got Laura McMillan. She is our VP of Training Development and Professional Services, an industry expert, somebody who we rely on for being our subject matter expert for many of our training courses. Also, somebody with, she has her CDL as well as her degree in instructional design, so a perfect fit with us. She cut her teeth at Schneider National and Rail and has joined us to help with our professional services team. Also joining us is Nate Stallman. He is our Chief Operating Officer and has been with the company since like high school, I think. He is, his experience has been leading our production department, building a lot of our back-end systems. He's been instrumental in everything we do and has had his hands in like probably on nearly every piece of code and video that we've done over the years. And with that, I'm going to let Nate start driving and introduce Brandon.
Well, I've had the pleasure of working with Brandon for a few years now. Brandon is responsible for supporting Ryder's global supply chain, their dedicated transportation services, fleet management services, and other divisions through United States and Canada. And in that area, he manages various aspects of the Ryder ProTread platform, which they have a branded and white label program. His team develops and reports on all Ryder safety, health, security training, policies and procedures, from everything from DOT and OSHA to IMDG and IATA. Brandon's team is accountable for company-wide reports, trend analysis, technology implementation, development, change management. Brandon gets to do some of the more interesting problems and come up with interesting solutions at Ryder. He's also, on a personal note, one of the most safety conscious individuals I know, and has a genuine concern for those that fall under his accountability and his care. So Brandon, thank you very much for joining us today and for working so well with us all these years.
Thanks, Nate. That was a pretty good introduction. I got to record that. It is being recorded. Good.
It is recorded.
I'll use it in the future. Thank you.
We will provide it to all the necessary people when your reviews come up. So
yeah, we'll tape a USB stick of it to your business cards that you can hand out. It'll be...
Or Nate, you just do my eulogy, okay? That'll be great.
Hopefully, it's much later than
sure
than today. So Brandon, why don't you give us a little bit about your role within Ryder and how it relates to you bringing on new employees?
Well, I think you covered quite a bit about my role in Ryder, that's for sure. Work with a great team of safety professionals within Ryder. Best group of folks that I think I've worked with in the industry, that's for sure. All dedicated to the health and safety of our employees, whether that be our shop technicians, our warehouse personnel, our mobile maintenance personnel, our drivers, office individuals, those kind of folks. So work with a lot of great folks, that's for sure. As it relates to orientation, safety orientation particularly, you know, I, with the help of some others in our department, we ensure that the policies match what's required to be done out in the field, first off. And then two, we create and define and maintain the mechanisms to provide safety orientation to those in the field as well. Many times, though, supported by our field safety staff, who are ultimately the ones feet in the ground, on the ground, tools in their hand, ensuring that what we develop is being utilized in the field from an orientation standpoint.
So, as you've worked with us, and we've done a lot of projects over the years, if you think back, what do you think has been your greatest win? If you had to pick one that you were particularly proud of, which program that we developed together do you think was the most successful?
Wow, that's well, there's been so many, Nate, as you know. You know, we have a couple hundred lessons that we work with through ITI ProTread. Is particularly, you know, I guess one of the neatest changes is our recent transformation over into the Sentix platform. That's for sure. Made the site very streamlined and user-friendly, and I think our employees are starting to like that quite a bit, particularly the dashboard side of things. But in addition to the training, ITI has been very supportive in us being able to create other programs within the system, such as the maintenance of kind of our disciplinary action tracking, in addition to our hazmat location database, which is very good. But I think one of the biggest items was the development of how we certify, track, and then track who's trained by our certified driver trainers. That's all interwebbed with not only some hands-on training, but the good online training that they can get from ITI. So that system is key to the success of our orientation as well. So I think that one is readily utilized. It is looked at as kind of a pillar of our training, and that's definitely something that ITI was able to be a large part of the success of creating that program.
And Laura worked with you a little bit on some of that in that process. Laura, how is that unique with Ryder, with going through that CDT development process?
Well, what has been great in working with Ryder is that they're a very safety conscious organization, and they're focused on continual improvement. And as such, a part of that effort has been, as far as Brandon taking the leadership role, of developing a structured program to actually certify driver trainers, attending to their professional development to make sure that they're conveying the safety standards, policies, and procedures that are important to Ryder. And, you know, investing that sort of time in building a structured program to make sure that their certified drivers, their trainers are trained properly, to convey those standards, to not only teach them, but also to assess those standards when they do their in-class testing, their at-truck testing with their drivers, and also their behind the wheel or ride-along sort of testing, making sure that they have trained their organization on what those standards are and how to properly support drivers has been real key. But having that commitment at Brandon's level and also with his peers at the leadership level of having a belief in safety and building a culture of safety has made all the difference in building that program. It wouldn't be the success that it is if they didn't have that leadership behind them, you know, conveying how important that is throughout the organization. And Brandon obviously has been doing a great job with that.
So and Ryder does have a very strong safety culture. Brandon, do you have to manage that culture, or is that something that you feel is so well ingrained at Ryder that it's maintaining the momentum as opposed to having to constantly remind people and get them up to speed?
Oh, it's constant. You know, our current head of safety for Ryder, Tony Montalbano, he has a saying, and we also have a slide that we do for a number of new business partners. And that slide has a lot of other business partners that we utilize within safety. And he always says, you know, there is no one magic bullet. So you have to continually update, you have to continually to change, you have to continually grow as the business changes and grows, as technology changes, obviously as regulations are updated and changed. So it's a constant eye on the ball. It's a constant work towards ensuring that we have the right programs, the right training policies, procedures, whatever it may be out there. So I certainly wish it was the prior of setting something up, ingraining what we believe to be a good safety program, and then sitting and letting it work. But as you know, things update and change. There's always that one exception to the rule. There's always that one rare occurrence that opens your eyes up to something that you never thought about. You know, people say that sometimes there's nothing new in safety, but there's always a way to apply a thought that's already been had in a different way, that's for sure. And that's where you need to constantly continue to change that idea that you've set up previously and continue to move it in another direction.
So the CDP program is interesting because you're using that for onboarding. Can you walk us through how a new driver is trained when they come on board today?
Sure. So Ryder provides its locations with 3 ways to onboard a new hire driver. So obviously this is after the verification that they meet our requirements, and we verify that they're compliant to our to the regulations, proper licenses, MVR, physical, etc. Then they have these 3 choices. One would be a classroom type training, but that is only permitted to be utilized and led by a safety manager, which we don't have many out there in the field, and it's only for a startup. So startup is new business. Usually it's all hands on deck. Usually it's a shortened time frame that we have to address. Therefore, many times either a classroom presentation of what ITI provides us, or even where you don't even have internet access, a PowerPoint, what have you. But ITI does create a mechanism for us to still log and document that training, even if not done directly in the system, on the system, so that we have verification that training was done. And then the second choice is a pure online process. And that's with our new employee safety orientation. It's just standard driver online. It covers everything that one would think that a driver orientation would cover, from defensive driving to compliance issues, to welcomes the riders and thank you for being here and what to expect and all that good stuff. And that's a pure online process, and that's something that we had for years. It's been utilized in conjunction with the location manager or representative, then doing additional specialized training, whether that's tanker, hazmat, or flatbed, or what have you, along with the regulatory certifications that are required, if required, through some of those topics as well. But then the third choice, and generally the one where you're going to get the best driver for the bang, or the best bang for your buck actually, is our certified driver trainer process, which is CDT. So a CDT who is certified and trained by our safety group, and then receives recertification every 3 years. They will ensure that a new hire driver is not only trained online, so there's a CDT prerequisite that they go through online, which captures a lot of the regulatory requirements, particularly OSHA being a big one, and the big 5 topics that you're required to review with a new hire via OSHA. In addition to then getting electronic verification of their understanding of many of our policies and that kind of thing. So that's that prerequisite, and really it's only about an hour and a half long. And then they're with a CDT for a minimum of 2 days, generally not longer than 5 days. And that will be a hands-on training process, which will go through prior to driving items, which is everything from pre-trips to hours of service to compliance and all that good stuff, to then driving and riding along with a driver. And that's obviously defensive driving, delivery site items and that. And then actual on-site delivery site hands-on, and that's movement of freight, that's backing, loading and unloading, whatever it may be. Now, that is all done on the job. So our certified driver trainers are not separate safety folks. They are drivers. They're 100% drivers, always driver, and always will be a driver. They have the ability and certification, though, to be a certified driver trainer, so that when they're training, though, we're not losing a head. Those individuals are working together while on the job. The first day, the individual riding with the certified driver trainer. If the certified driver trainer feels that they are capable, then they'll switch seats and do that, like I said, for a minimum of 2 days, maximum of 5. All this is documented on the proper forms. These forms are uploaded into ProTread. And again, we then have verification, a new employee safety orientation, not only for this process, but the other 2 processes that we have that then feeds a new employee safety orientation report that we can run by our business groups to ensure that the people who are onboarded are documented and properly trained.
And Brandon, those CDTs, they're running both new drivers as well as experienced drivers when they come through the CDT process? Yep.
So our CDTs will generally be utilized majority of the time with a new hire driver. We require a minimum of 1 year, so they're experienced as far as 12 months is concerned. But then, yeah, they'll be utilized for some remedial training too. So if you have an issue that's been post-incident, post-injury, post-collision, maybe items that have been seen on Lytx Drive Cam, which are cameras in each and every one of our trucks, they may be retrained by a certified driver trainer as well through that process.
Do the CDTs, and this is a question I don't think I've asked you before, do the CDTs maintain communication with their trainees as they move past that process?
Well, the great thing is, by utilizing the certified driver trainer process, it does a couple of things. One, it creates a good relationship between the certified driver trainer and the safety manager who created or certified them as a CDT. So now the safety manager has somebody they know at the site. And then 2, it creates a relationship between the CDT and the new hire driver. Many times a new hire driver is not sure who to talk to, who to ask questions to. They may not want to ask the location manager. They may not want to reveal the fact that they don't know how to utilize a paper log rather than an electronic logging device any more than the next guy. So it gives them an opportunity to know somebody, a fellow driver, who again is a driver. They drive each and every day. They run their regular routes, etc., to talk to and discuss issues and questions that they may not feel comfortable asking their location manager. So it does create that relationship, and we have seen continued relationships after the onboarding process is completed.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's like having a built-in mentor.
Sure is.
Do we want to move on?
Yeah.
So when you are training your CDTs, your trainers, do you provide them, what kind of additional instruction do you provide them, or are the safety managers providing them?
Well, for a CDT, from a CDT perspective, when we're certifying them, they're required to be with Ryder for a year, and they have to be in good standing, which means they have to meet all, there's no write-ups, there's a clean MBR, those kind of things, and they are in good standing, obviously, with the location manager, because the location manager ultimately is in charge of this entire process, ensuring that their people are onboarded and everything's uploaded and documented properly online. So they will spend a minimum of 2 days becoming a certified driver trainer with our safety manager, safety group, what have you. Now, recertification, however, because now we have nearly 300 CDTs across our locations, and we have approximately 7,400 company commercial drivers, in addition to another 2,000 lease drivers and owner-operators, of course. And with those 300 CDTs, having 6 safety managers, which we have that cover our supply chain, a dedicated group where all the CDTs sit, traveling everywhere, recertifying that, it just does not make sense. So CDT tracks what they do if they've done other stuff other than new employee safety orientation, but then they're required to do at least 4 a year, average 4 a year, to keep their skills going. But what ITI has provided us is a way to recertify these individuals online. So they'll take a recertification, which talks through the process of certifying a new employee or training a new employee. They will then discuss over the phone any issues, problems, and the safety manager, after doing all that and after speaking to the location manager, will either not allow them to continue or enter in the recertification date within ProTread to ensure that all the training is good and proper and accurate.
So in addition to the technical skills, Laura, what are the kind of soft skills that are involved with training trainers?
So I'm sure Brandon can certainly chime in with this. It's not enough to sort of have the experienced drivers who've exhibited, all the safety related skills, be free of accidents for a period of time, free of injuries, otherwise be productive drivers. Obviously, those are skills that you want to see with any person who is pegged to be a certified driver trainer responsible for training that next generation of drivers. What we know, however, and again, I think Brandon can certainly elaborate on this, is that the skill set of training other people is different than driving a vehicle or driving a truck. It's entirely different, in fact. And so attending to the soft skills, as Nate mentioned, the soft skills like being able to communicate with others, to be able to coach others, provide constructive feedback, to the ability to problem solve, to adapt to situations. But a lot of it wrapped around the interpersonal skill set, being able to communicate effectively with others is very key to effective training. And so, Brandon, can you share with us what are some things that you're doing to help foster that development with your CDT folks? Because I know that you folks, you attend to that factor as well. You want to make sure that they can communicate effectively Otherwise, why go into training if they can't? But can you elaborate on how you kind of bake that into certified driver training to make sure that your folks are really qualified to convey information and support it?
Yeah, sure. So a certified driver trainer, if they want to be a certified driver trainer, any driver, there is an application process that is utilized. And that application process is obviously really just, you know, a piece of paper that a safety manager will take a look at. Our group logistics managers have to approve the nomination. And an individual may look great on a piece of paper, meet everything, have multiple years of safe driving experience, what have you. However, many times a safety manager has gone out to certify this CDT and has found that the individual, although has many years of safe driving, does not perform in a way that we think is a safe driver should be performing each and every day. And on top of that, could not convey, therefore, how things should be done to a new employee who there's an expectation that they do the right thing each and every time. So a part of our certified driver trainer process when creating a CDT is we have an adult learning section. And this adult learning section talks through how to then convey what it is that's in this book to somebody. You know, how to be respectful, how to understand that many people may not get it the first time, how to eliminate frustrations when that occurs, how to draw the line when somebody and to approach somebody when they're doing something incorrectly or unsafely, and how to change that attitude. And all of that is discussed with the CDT when they are becoming a CDT by the safety manager.
Awesome.
We'll move to the next one.
One more quick question on that, Brandon. How's the feedback been? Do the new drivers coming in enjoy having that representation and that advocate?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, the feedback from our leadership group has been 100% positive. You know, they've said that this is the best program Ryder's ever created, and I think they get the feedback directly from their management group, their staff, and their drivers. You know, and I have spoke to drivers who have been through the new employee safety orientation process via CDT, and they've said that they have never received such a detailed, intuitive, and safety conscious process at any other company that they've worked for. So I've asked a few of them to record that, and I've yet to get a taker, but I was only joking. So, but the feedback's been excellent.
Good. Do the CDTs, are they only responsible for those drivers that are under their care at the time, or are they sort of an extension of the safety manager, where if they see something on the yard that needs to be brought up, or are they allowed to assist, or are they expected to assist as well?
We empower every employee to assist in that. So not only a CDT, but any driver, they themselves foresee something or foresee an unsafe situation or see an unsafe situation, they have the right at all times and the responsibility to bring that forward. And they all know that, and they all hear that under what's called the captain of the ship policy, which I may touch on a little later once we get into some other topics.
Whoops, hang on. That didn't do it the way I wanted to. There we go.
So we've got the measuring slide up. What do you use to measure success? And there's two parts, Brandon. I think there's the part that you use to measure both to demonstrate to leadership that it's effective, but also the part that you use personally to measure that you're having an impact.
Well, like majority of companies, we have scorecards. Ryder is very number driven, Everything's a number, everything's is a frequency, everything's a percent complete, what have you. So we have safety scorecards where we measure not only our collision per million miles, our OSHA recordable incident rates, our lost workday incident rates, the cost of incidents, what have you, measured against revenue. But we also measure completion percentages of training completion requirements by team and then up to vice president. We also measure IMS report completion. We measure compliance to CDL and physical expired document compliance. We measure hazmat overdue training compliance. All of that is within a safety scorecard on a monthly basis, and we're working towards automating that so that it can be available at any point in time. Now, that is how you measure success, obviously. It goes in waves. Some years you got good years, some years you wish you had better. But we find that Ryder always being atop the industry, that's for sure, as far as our safe driving numbers, particularly our DOT recordable collision rate is always amongst the best of the industry. Now, personally, how do I measure it? You know, it's difficult for I think for a safety professional to measure their success many times. But I think the small wins are what a lot of safety professionals tend to remember. You're at a meeting and somebody approaches you and you don't know them from Adam, and they compliment you on Ryder's program. They compliment you on the training that they've received. They compliment you on the benefits that they see through the use of things like ProTread, the use of our defensive driving techniques, the use of our CDT program, the management of our lytics program, or what have you. In addition to the understanding and the capabilities to see the benefits through lytics drive cam and those cameras, and seeing somebody avoiding an incident that could have been a fatality, which we see many times because our drivers have applied the right techniques, the right driving techniques that we have preached year over year. So I think many safety professionals like to measure that, and that obviously makes you feel real good, but every safety professional knows that around the next bend or overnight or the next morning, things may change, and you have to be prepared to do that. You have to ensure that you're compliant to address those times where things may go bad. You need to ensure that you've done the right things from training and understanding and education, just in case you can address those times that go bad. So I think a lot of those small wins is how I measure it and how a lot of safety professionals would measure their success.
Yeah, as in safety, it's hard to prove the absence of an event. I think one of the things I admire about Ryder is how well you communicate from safety down to even the early entries of your organization. I mean, that's a top-down philosophy, and it's very well reinforced. And I think that the compassion and concern that you demonstrate for those employees and drivers and mechanics, it's exceptional. Do you think there's any pushback from sort of the older drivers that want to do things the old way, or do you think there's a good comfort with we're constantly changing and updating and trying to improve?
Well, I'm more worried about the younger drivers at this point. Our kind of numbers have shown, but you know, the older drivers, I think many of them, particularly are ones that have been with us for a long time. Obviously, there's always those issues of things becoming stagnant, somebody getting too comfortable in that seat. Nothing's happened to me yesterday, so probably won't happen to me today type of attitude. And that's why we implement regular training. So if you look at somebody's awareness of safety, it can go in waves. You know, you have a group of, let's say, drivers in a safety meeting. They all come out of that safety meeting, as long as it's direct, impactful, and passionate, a lot of them feel good. You know, like, yeah, okay, yeah, I understand that. I understand why I need to do this now. I understand why I need to do that. I'm going to apply this, that, or the other. And they may do that for a day or two or a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. But obviously, like many of us do, we may get back into a sense of being safe when we're actually not. Bad habits start to creep back in, and that's why we use regular training, whether that be monthly, quarterly, or what have you, to then try to heighten that awareness just a little bit, get that back to the top of the wave. And then they're always going to come back to that bottom of the wave. So you've got to continue to hit it. You got to continue to provide some type of understanding of what needs to be done and should be done, because the one individual that'll take one sentence from a safety message and apply it that day may be the one individual that, if that safety message didn't go out, would not go home that day. So we think like that. We ensure that we work in providing the information necessary for those individuals, whether they be tenured drivers, the old timers, as they say, or even our new drivers, and ensuring that those individuals who may not have come from a trucking family, which rarely happens anymore, you know, sometimes transportation may be the last job that they wanted to do rather than the first these days. Making certain that they're comfortable in the truck, understanding that what the job that they do is extremely important to not only Ryder but the overall industry as a whole, and what they can do to affect their safe driving and ensure that what they do each and every day affects their home life as well. So it's just that constant attention to what needs to be done.
Well, and I think we're getting to my favorite part of webinars, is the advice section. You had mentioned Ryder's captain of the ship policy, which I very much support. I appreciate that you have a policy. Why don't you explain a little bit about what that entails, and then how that impacts and empowers your drivers?
All right, yeah, like I said just a couple of minutes ago, our captain of the ship policy is just that. It allows everyone to be the captain of their own ship. They, therefore, in that policy, have both the right, they have the right without fear of retribution, without fear of what they bring forward could end in some type of write-up or termination. And they have the responsibility to do so, to bring forward unsafe conditions as they see it. A few examples that drivers will bring forward as unsafe conditions are a lot of times weather. Captain of ship is applied in weather situations. Every driver has different skills. Every driver has different capabilities. One driver may be able to dispatch through certain weather. Others may not feel comfortable in doing so. They may utter the words, captain of the ship. And I tell you, that's exactly what happens, and that's what the policy states. You say those words to anybody within Ryder, everybody within Ryder knows that you're serious, that you need help, that you need an understanding, and then we'll fix that. Whether that be changing a dispatch time, whether that be in getting a replacement vehicle because the one that they have is not one that suits or fits a safe operation or compliant operation for some reason, whether that be a stack of freight, something that's too heavy, or anything that we train people on to be safe and compliant to, that at times out there in the real world, things aren't safe and compliant. So we need something to awaken our management team to the fact that, hey, I need help. Something's different, something's changed. I have the right to call captain of ship. I'm going to do so. And you also have the responsibility to do so, whereas if you don't call captain of ship and you proceed in an unsafe situation, you're taking ownership of everything that happens thereafter. You can't call captain of ship after you've rear-ended somebody. So all of our drivers understand that. And all of our drivers, I think, appreciate the fact that we empower them to do so.
So on our advice section, Brandon, Ryder's a large organization. If you were talking to someone at a smaller fleet or company and they're trying to do everything on their own, what advice would you give them about onboarding new employees and getting them up to speed so that they're safe and comfortable with the job?
Well, I would first, your first step is to have a compliant employee, because it helps you in no form or fashion to have a safe employee if that safe employee is not compliant, not even on the road. So having a mechanism to be able to track, verify, and ensure compliance, make certain that that driver, before they're even out on the road, has everything in place that they need to have to ensure that as they go down the road, they're pulled over, everything is proper from a CDL, physical, vehicle, and hours of service perspective. Second, from an orientation standpoint, I would measure your ability to touch those drivers in a way that you are able to convey your company's thoughts and understanding around compliance and safety. And that's different at many companies. The one thing is that online training can be twofold. It can start that for you. It can begin to explain what a company's understanding is around policies, procedures, what the air of safety is at that company, etc., that you can then reinforce with face-to-face contact, face-to-face ride-along with others, and face-to-face meetings to ensure that they truly understand what's required of them and what the company's thoughts are around safety. Second, though, online training can assist one in documenting all of that. Paper is certainly becoming a thing of the past. Within safety, we have very limited actual documents that require any type of signing. And when we do, we create a database online to ensure that they're maintained electronically. All of our driver files are no longer pieces of paper, rather all electronically managed within our driver performance management system. So it's a twofold process, and I think that if you ensure that, one, you have a compliant driver, and two, you're picking out the mechanism that ensures that you're able to convey the pride, passion, and emotion that your company has for safety, I think you'll have somebody who will do well for you, at least until you have to have that next safety meeting or that next online or face-to-face training.
So, Laura, you have talked to a lot of small fleets in your professional services role here. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I think what Brandon outlined is a solid strategy in the absence of having a lot of folks to delegate work to cover your different locations. And for many companies, they have to decentralize their training. So using a combination or blended strategy where you use online tools to convey information, you get the added bonus of consistency of message along with that. So you can economically distribute policies, procedures, safety standards out among your fleet and among all personnel to keep everyone updated and informed, but also, and you can do that economically through online training, but then back that up with providing face-to-face. Something too I would add to what Brandon said for the face-to-face is, given the amount of detailed information that a company often keeps using different telematics and safety instrumentation tools and the dashboards that are increasingly available, fleets are able to be even more prescriptive about training and consequently allocate their resources more intelligently using that data. For example, prioritizing which drivers they work with based on telematics or other information on that driver or group of drivers. So again, in the interest of most carriers do not have unlimited resources of instructors to go out and do simultaneous training. Use tools and dashboard metrics to your advantage to basically cluster out your fleet into different groups or categories of risk. And ultimately, with your highest risk or potential risk drivers, you can then prioritize the additional online training or the instructor resources to do the face-to-face and the ride-alongs or behind the wheel to help sort of audit those drivers or make sure they're fully informed and functioning at the safety level you expect, and then reserve any overflow or resources to the less risk or lower risk category of drivers for a later time, or at least spread out your needing to see them on a priority basis. You have more flexibility with those drivers. In the past, those dashboard tools didn't exist. It was more challenging as fleet managers to assess and address all the different training needs. And there was a bit of that sense of, for compliance sake, we have to train the entire fleet and work them through our own bottleneck shortage of resources or system just to get them trained. Now, fleet managers and safety managers have the tools. So look for ways, and that's something we can consult with certainly people on. And I'd be interested in Brandon speaking to this topic. Look for ways to categorize the drivers so that you can point your resources to where they're needed most, either by geographic location or by the highest risk drivers. But Brandon, could you speak to that a bit? I presume you are using your numbers to your advantage to help isolate or categorize drivers so that you can help ultimately prioritize where your resources go to provide the face-to-face audits and ride-alongs and whatnot that you might be doing. Do you mind sharing with us what you do?
Well, I wish there was much more I could share on that topic, but we're currently kind of in a place where we're growing that. So in January of 2017, we implemented a new safety management system, which is all of our proactive tasks, online inspections, observations, action plans, safety action plans, dashboards, that kind of thing, all relative to everything, pretty much not related to training, associated with safety and proactive measures associated with that. And then in January of this year, we implemented a new incident management system. Our previous incident management system, which was great, was an in-house product, but it didn't have a lot of key indicators that we're able to utilize, whereas now our current incident management system allows us to dig into more of that driver frequency, incident frequency, negative observation frequency, and we're digging into how we can then take that and then push attention to those drivers. Although after the fact, though, our what's called risk-associated behavior process, which is our safety write-up. Everybody's got a safety write-up program, but ours is called an RAB. Those are tracked within ProTread, which is nice. And we've just developed, though, a notification system through the new Sentix platform, where once we hit a single or two RAB within a 2-year period, a notification is sent to safety, appropriate safety manager and location manager, notifying, just in case they forgot, that you have somebody who has a tendency to now have 2 issues in place, maybe developing a trend. So let's either get them retrained, or that's online training if it's needed, or with a CDT if that's needed, to change whatever it is that needs to be done to turn them into a better driver so that they're not finding their way out the door, because that is not what we want right now. With the shortage of drivers, we want good drivers, and we want great drivers. And if a driver finds themselves going from a great to a good, which everybody can make mistakes and has lapses of judgment, we want to do everything that we can to ensure we turn them back into a great driver, which our programs can help. So more to come on that, Laura. So hopefully I can have a better answer here in the next 12 months or so.
No, that's great. Thank you for responding to that. There's always something to grow towards, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you, if I can ask another follow-up question of you, Brandon. So you've evolved so much with your training programs over the years. You've come from a past place. You're doing some very creative things currently that are achieving success. What's next for Ryder? What's the next sort of horizon you see for driver training, and where do you want to go? Where do you want to take your program?
Oh, hopefully nowhere for a little bit, Laura. It's been so much change and work recently, but no, like I said earlier, is you're going to have to constantly change. And I think our platform is going to continue to move in the way that technology is moving. However, trying to figure out how to utilize that technology to where it's not affecting somebody's ability or inability to operate safely a commercial motor vehicle. And obviously I'm speaking to mobile capabilities and technology. And not just for our drivers, but for our managers as well. Everything that we offer now for our management team, for our drivers, warehouse, technicians, whatever, we are also looking at other ways to implement that, and that would be through a mobile platform. Everybody's got a smartphone, not everybody. Few people in my family do not still, but the majority of people have a smartphone, and the expectation is that things operate in that way, in that capacity. So as we continue to grow and the changes that we see and the new programs that we implement, there's an idea, and we have to continue to think of that idea of not only people now having smartphones, but a younger generation expecting that things either operate on one, or capability operate on one, or looks well while operating on one. So those are obviously issues that we take in hand, and we try to improve upon as we continue to grow our platform.
Sounds good. Brandon?
Dive into questions and answers.
Yeah. So we've gotten a few questions along the way, and Nate has shown his nimbleness, and this has been a really good audition for him to move on to the TV circuit by asking a few of them along the way. But I'm going to read off a few of these questions, starting with one that we got earlier, but I'm going to sort of rephrase it. And one of them was, does Ryder reduce the size of the route given to a CDT and trainee to allow more focus on training versus productivity? And I'll just sort of loop in also a broader question there, which is, how does the balance between productivity and training sort of play out within Ryder? How do those conversations happen in such a way that everybody leaves the room feeling like that they're getting what they need, from the business and from the, from a safety perspective?
Well, that's a good point, and yes, well, let me answer that, and I guess in a couple of ways. So Ryder does everything, which is great for business and hard for safety. It's we touch everything. We haul everything, whether that's dry van, tanker, pneumatic, flatbed, drop deck, doubles, triples. We warehouse everything from electronics to food to anything and everything that's used, automotive parts, obviously, for all the major automotive carriers. So it can get very site specific when it comes to a CDT training a new employee, but our managers will adjust the dispatch to accommodate CDTs at times, and I'll use an example, a flatbed operation as an example. So when you get a new driver coming in for flatbed, there's obviously some safety and compliance implications relative to the securement of cargo on a flatbed, how to do it, the requirements around how to do it, the requirements associated with your blocking and bracing, your straps, your chains, all that good stuff. And to be able to train to a T and ensure that new employee understands exactly what's required of that business, that may take a little more time. So instead of doing a 15 to 18 stop day, the manager may switch them around to a 10 or an 11 stop day or what have you. Now, if we take one of our drop and hook businesses, however, as an example, it's an 11, 12, 13-hour day. It's a drive and a turnaround, a drop and a hook, or maybe 2 drops and hooks. You may not need to adjust those dispatch times. So we will where necessary, and we won't where not necessary, but it comes with the territory. And that's where our management has decided to dedicate themselves to ensuring that they get better drivers by saying that that is okay. We also communicate at the site level to our customers what we are doing and what the CDT program is, to let them know that, hey, you're going to get a better driver. We're going to get a safer driver. We're going to get a driver that's with us longer, and therefore you don't have to worry about us, needing to fill holes and having tractors up against the fence at times. So yes, we will adjust those and change where necessary.
Yeah. This next question is I'm going to ask Nate, okay. Which is because we're getting toward the end of the thing here, so this will probably be one of the last questions we have here, which is, and it's a webinar, so this is the part where it's maybe a little bit of a commercial. Is the onboarding customized for each company using their own policies, procedures, logos, etc.? Is customized training a service that we offer, Nate?
Yes. In fact, we produce more customized training than we produce of anything else. So if you're looking to customize your onboarding process, Laura's team is a great place to get started to find out what level of customization is required. It could be anything from you need paperwork and policies presented and digital signatures to you need custom content on welcome to the company or adoption of technology. There's a wide range of what is possible and required for onboarding. Sometimes it's company specific. If there's only one location, it's sometimes easier, and professional services, Laura's group would go through and say, well, you can do this online, but you only have one location and you might be bringing in people for an instructor-led process, and you may not need to have that other than as a reference.
Mm-hmm. One of the ways that we talk sometimes about custom content here is that we can host content that you have, so documents, videos that you've created or that you had created for you is one type where it's literally you're giving us those documents, that video, whatever it is, that PowerPoint presentation that you recorded off a webinar, and then we just host it. We maybe cut it up into little sections. You can ask questions along the way. Another type is edited content. So maybe we take one of our, we have, I think, more than 43 hours of standard content in our library. And we can take that and make some small tweak to it, change the voiceover, change the text that's on screen. We can add a page in between, make really small sort of changes to that piece of content for you. There's usually sort of a small charge associated with that. Or we can create content from scratch. You have a policy or a particular piece of equipment that you need, or whatever the case may be. Message from the CEO. We still do video. In fact, I think we just did some the last 2 days.
Yes, we did.
So there are lots of different levels of custom training that we can provide, and the number one usage for that is onboarding.
And that's just the training side. There's also the back end side on Sentix Pro on tracking and how that process and reports and dashboards and longevity and who was involved. Those kinds of things can be customized as well. And again, professional services would help guide that conversation and ask the correct questions for identifying those needs.
Yeah. With that, we are just about out of time. He said, looking at his thing. Yep, in fact, we got about a minute left. So I saw that there are a few more questions. I will pass some of them along to Brandon where possible, and then to other people on our team where appropriate. But I just want to take a few minutes and really say thank you to Brandon for this, for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it. We enjoy working with Brandon. Ryder is the gold standard for us in terms of safety and training. They really, they do the right thing, which is something that we admire and try to emulate ourselves here. So Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And with that, to just a couple of things. If there are any follow-up questions, you can feel free to send them to me, marketing@instructiontech.net, and I'll forward your questions around. If you have any questions specifically about onboarding, ProTread, custom training, all things ITI, you can visit us on the web and hopefully find things. If you can't find things, shoot me a message, because I'm the one who will be changing them.